Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbert. With me is Brent Hine. Taking a look at tonight's 14-game slate on FanDuel and DraftKings. Big news, no weather across the board, just hot games. Thank God.
You led with big news, and I was tempted to look and see if there was another like NBA player that exercised his player option or something. You had me excited there. Unfortunately, being an NBA huge NBA fan, I'm a little bit more excited about player option deadline day than I am about Major League Baseball. But we do have 14 games and some very expensive pitchers to talk about, so it does make it interesting.
I'm waiting for you to. I know I'm going to be looking at you in the pod and seeing you look down at your phone like every time something goes off, thinking it's going to be a Woj bomb.
I mean, I get push notifications for like Mark Stein, Bobby Marks, like Woj, all the newsbreakers. So like as soon as my watch goes ding, like I'm gonna look down and be like, it's gonna be like Bobby Marks talking about salary caps or something.
Well, something teams don't have to worry about here is salary caps. So let's dig into baseball. Boston and Reds and the Yankees here. Big series. We got two lefties on the hill: Eduardo Rodriguez, CC Sabathia. I don't have any interest in either of these pitchers.
Nope, not touching any of these pitchers. Like I don't even feel like there's a reason to talk about them.
No, let's talk some bats here. Boston obviously made a trade for a guy who hits lefties pretty well, but don't expect him to be in the lineup tonight. The problem here is just all these guys are just too expensive for me. Basically, I think if you want to get some cheap, back half guys, that's fine. But overall, this is a lineup that's just too expensive on this slate.
Didn't we say that the other night, and then they ended up going just bananas and making us look like idiots?
I did say Maldonado was going to get to Porcello. It was going to be like 3 to 4 runs, and it was going to be that was the only thing I got right on that slate.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it is really tough to fade Betts and Martinez if you can afford them, just given how ridiculously good they've been recently. So especially in cash games, I feel like a pretty safe bet for a good outing here. So I don't hate fading, or I don't hate using those guys if you can afford them. Unfortunately, on DraftKings, with all the good pitchers being over 13K, except for one guy who's still really expensive, it is kind of tough to afford them. But if you can, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you look at it here, it's weird. I don't hate Rafael Devers, lefty matchup in the spot. I mean, dude still has some power against left-handers, and he's been a guy who will sit back on off-speed stuff and go yard, especially in this friendly ballpark here in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, there's also one guy, Cristiano Vasquez, if he makes the lineup, is a little bit interesting. He's been really good recently. If you just look at his last few games, he's been hitting the ball pretty well. And Sabathia, a guy throwing that cutter a decent amount. I mean, almost 40% this season. Vasquez, a guy, 30 batted ball events, 342 WOBA, 47% hard contact rate, and an 82% contact rate against cutters. So from the Boston side, he's an interesting value option, I think, to consider behind the dish.
Yeah, for sure. We're finally seeing those guys start to heat up a little bit. New York side of things, I think we're going to get a couple bats in here and play. Once again, it's kind of the cheaper options that I'm kind of looking at. Eduardo Rodriguez has obviously been pretty solid this year. He's been a guy who started to mix in more pitches, not throwing the fastball as much, but there's still guys that just mash lefties here.
Yeah, there's a few. I'm always going to have more interest in the guys at the bottom of the order generally because they're the cheaper option. So I don't hate Miguel Andujar, who has a 282 ISO against lefties this season. Romine back there as well at 222 ISO against them this season. Hicks is a very interesting option, I think, a little bit as well. 277 ISO projected to bat leadoff, so I don't hate rolling him out. And then obviously, if you want to roll with the Judges and the Stantons and those guys, I think you can definitely get away with doing it. But again, they're also expensive bats here.
Yeah, that's the same thing. It's kind of like the Boston side where I'm looking at the cheaper options, and I made it 5 minutes, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought I did. I thought I worked some Cesar Millan magic, and then it didn't happen.
It didn't. It did not work for you.
LA and Baltimore next year. Felix Pena take on David Hess. Los Angeles offense obviously fell flat over the last series, but I really, really like the Angels here tonight.
Yeah, I am a fan of the Angels in this spot as well. I mean, David Hess is not a good pitcher. He's a guy who struggles against lefties, righties, amphibious hitters, ambidextrous hitters, you, me, anybody out there. I mean, over 34% hard contact, both sides of the plate, a ton of fly balls to both sides of the plate. And this is an offense that has a lot of power at times, and there's a lot of guys in this lineup that are decent or really good against fastballs, which is basically all Hess is throwing. I mean, 61% of his pitches this season have been his 92-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball, and then he throws in like a slider at like 23%, and then just a sprinkle of changeups and curveballs. So this Angels offense is definitely interesting here.
And the slider usage has gone down from like his first couple of starts, which is odd because that was his best pitch.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why he's not throwing it as much, but he's not.
No, so let's look at some bats here. I mean, outside of like Trout, I mean, everyone else is fairly priced. I feel like you got some numbers, against these fastballs that's pretty solid. Kinsler, 221 ISO against this range. Upton, huge 365 ISO. If you want cheaper exposure to this outfield, I think he's fine. But like even guys like Pujols and Andrelton Simmons, like I don't hate in this spot because of their price tags.
I absolutely love Ian Kinsler, especially because of his price tag in this spot. I mean, you mentioned he has good numbers against that fastball, 221 ISO, 339 WOBA dating back to 2016, 37% hard contact, 88% contact rate. He's good against righties this season with the 203 ISO. Very, very solid option here at second base, especially like on FanDuel. He's only 3,100. Like that's really cheap for a guy that's been hitting pretty well recently. So I don't hate going there. You mentioned Trout, Upton, guys that you can definitely look at, but I like Valbuena. I like Simmons. I like a couple of those guys towards the middle or the bottom half of that lineup that I think are interesting options. And Martina Maldonado, a guy that you can consider behind the dish.
Yeah, for sure. Like 1 through 8 here, it's going to be very playable. You can find them in the stacking article. They're my first one in.
Yeah, your puppy likes the stack.
He loves the Angels. Is it super loud?
It's not terrible.
All right, so we're going to have to roll with it. Baltimore side things here, Pena, a guy we have a little sample size on the majors, a guy who struggled with lefties so far, but just hard contact and fly balls up, to both sides. It's Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be someone that gets looked at as a value pitching option tonight, and I understand it. I mean, he is a guy dating back to last season, 24% strikeout rate. This is a Baltimore offense that does strike out a lot. This projected lineup, 23.6% strikeout rate this season to right-handed pitchers. There's, I think, merit to at least considering him in tournaments. I don't think you can use him in cash games. I think there's a couple other guys that we're going to get to a little bit later that are safer if you're looking at like the value starting pitcher, like SP2 options. But he's a guy that throws that slider a decent amount, like 36, almost 37% this season. And nobody from Baltimore hits baseballs very well, but sliders especially. I mean, outside of like Adam Jones and Manny Machado, everybody else has like a below 65% contact rate against the pitch. So he's risky, but he's a guy that I think could pay off.
Yeah, at 6,600, like there's definitely some strikeout upside here. You're probably going to get like 2 lefties in this lineup against him. It's Colby Rasmus and Chris Davis, 2 of some of the worst contact bats in the league. So I'm not too concerned here. I don't mind him as like an SP2 guy. I'm like FanDuel. I don't think you really need to go there. There's other options that are a little bit safer, but he's definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will say like Colby Rasmus is not a very good hitter, but like dating back to last season, 237 ISO, 332 WOBA against right-handed pitching, a lot of hard contact, like over 40%. I could see using him as a value option tonight. What's his price on DraftKings? He is 3,600 on DraftKings. I know on FanDuel the other day, he's 2,500 on FanDuel. So I think you get away with rolling him, or I guess Chris Davis at 2,100 because he is heating up. I mean, he has homers in back-to-back games. So like Chris Davis on a hot streak, you could take a shot.
MLB Network has been talking about his bad contract a little bit more. Maybe that's gotten him going.
Maybe.
So, anyone else here?
No.
Washington and Philly next. You got Nick Pivetta taking on Eric Fetty Wap, as you like to call him here. Any interest in pitching here?
Pavetta is a little interesting, I think, if you're looking at like guys not in the triple or the quadruple or however many freaking digits there are on all these prices on DraftKings. He's 9,500. He's kind of like the odd man out as far as that like high end goes. He does struggle against lefties with a 347 WOBA allowed and a lot of fly balls and hard contacts. So I don't know that he's a very safe option with Harper and Soto and some of these other lefties, but I think he's a guy that people are going to talk about a little bit in tournaments because there is some strikeout upside for him.
Yeah, like I won't say no to him here. This Washington lineup, obviously a handful of lefties, which is concerning, but we've seen teams go into Washington and pitch against them and pitch fairly well because there still are some strikeouts here. And Nick Pivetta is obviously a guy who has shown some strikeout upside this season. I wish he was a little cheaper. I will say that, but I do think he is viable in GPPs. Like I won't say no, but I probably won't have any exposure either.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things if you're trying to pay down below the 11.9 that Patrick Corbin is or whatever, he's someone that you can consider. But like on the flip side, I also don't hate taking some of these lefties against him. Mentioned Juan Soto. He's a guy that I do have a little bit of interest in. I don't know if I want to pay for Bryce Harper here. 4,900 is a little bit cheap on DraftKings. So I don't hate taking a shot if you're wanting to stack them up, but I think Eaton and Soto are the guys that I'm looking at the most.
And too, I like that Eaton price tag a lot. 4-1, he's the cheapest of that outfield group. But prices are coming down a little bit for guys like Harper and Murphy. We still haven't seen anything getting going yet. But like Rendon's been hot. I know Pivetta's been good against righties, but Rendon's just been on fire lately.
Yeah, he has. He's been on fire for like the entire month. So I don't hate taking a shot on him.
No. Other side, this one with Philly. I don't mind taking some bats here. A guy kind of pedestrian stuff. He just throws just a ton of stuff though. But a guy with a good sinker. But there's some guys here that are just heating up. Santana still hitting the ball well. Hoskins in the ball well. And I think they're all excellent GPP options because I don't want to pay that price in cash games.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like I'd be looking at some of the guys that have been a little bit hot recently. Fetty 354 WOBA allowed to righties this season. Decent ground ball stuff though, 50% ground ball rate to the handedness, but a lot of hard contact, like 38.5%. Rhys Hoskins, a guy that hits sinkers pretty darn well. A 521 WOBA, 462 ISO, that's good. King Caesar, 365 WOBA, 91% contact rate in that leadoff spot. Odubel continues to hit really, really well. It's a good park. It's a good spot for some of these guys, so I don't hate taking a shot on them at all.
Oh, I don't either. Nick Williams, still fairly cheap, 3,400. Another one who hits those sinkers well, 412 with 229 ISO, and like Carlos Santana, priced up a little bit, but I like when he's kind of priced up because he starts to drop in ownership, and he's been a guy who just continues to hit the ball extremely hard.
Yep, and I mentioned Rhys Hoskins back-to-back games with home runs, heating up a little bit, getting hit in the face with the ball. I guess helped his plate vision a little bit.
Was he? I think he has 8 home runs since returning.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Detroit and Toronto. Marcus Stroman taking on Francisco Liriano. Toronto projected for over 5 runs tonight. Looking at them last night, I kind of was like, all right, I'm interested here. But that was with Steve Pearce in the lineup, and now you can't really stack them here because you're going to probably get Morales and Smoke. You can't FanDuel. I'm kind of turned off now for some reason now that Pearce is out.
I am a little bit, but I also do still have some interest in these guys. It is a revenge game for Liriano, so there is that, if you believe in that sort of thing. But I don't think there's any upside for him in this spot. I can't try. I know he throws that slider a ton, and we like taking pitchers that throw sliders against the Blue Jays, but he just can't be trusted with the walks. That's the biggest thing with him. But the Teoscar Hernandez, the Justin Smokes, Solarte, guys like that are definitely interesting. And then you still have Devin Travis, who this season has been hitting lefties really, really well with the 268 ISO that I mean, these guys are definitely intriguing options.
Like I really like Solarte here just because his contact is far better than some of these other guys. The Hernandez's and Smokes. I like them in GPPs, especially at their prices. Like Smoke at 3.6 is really intriguing tonight on DraftKings. I am looking for the contact bats, and like you said, I don't expect Liriano to last long, and then you're going to get maybe 4 innings of this bad Detroit bullpen as well here.
Yeah, and like if you're looking at guys that do make contact, I mean, against sinkers, you do have Devin Travis, 90% contact rate against the pitch, 336 ISO or 336 WOBA, very little power against the pitch, but he's the guy that just doesn't swing at him that much. And when he does, he's making contact. You have Grichuk, who has good numbers against it. So like these guys are definitely interesting. And even someone like Kevin Pillar, someone that I think you can consider. Let's see, where are they on FanDuel? They're pretty cheap on FanDuel. Like Teoscar's only 3,100. That's a really good price. Grichuk 2,500. I mentioned Devin Travis. He's 2,300. These guys are not expensive over on FanDuel. DraftKings, they are a little bit more pricey, but still not terrible.
No, I don't think so. Like FanDuel, I mean, going to be paying up there for pitching, so I'm trying to find some cheaper power bats. This lineup certainly has it.
Yes, for sure.
Other side of things here, I know you're not into Stroman. I did like what I saw of his last start. I do want to kind of keep an eye on him moving forward. It's an intriguing price, but I think probably for maybe 1,000 or 2,000 more, you can go with some other options. But I will say I want to keep an eye on him here.
Yeah, I'm hesitant just because it was just one start, and like that's the only real positive signs he's shown that like this entire season is that one start. So I don't know if I buy into it. I know it was against the Angels. I guess if you want to take a shot in tournaments, feel free. He's really cheap across the industry, but I don't know that I completely buy into it, and I'm willing to take some shots on some of these Detroit bats like the Nico Goodrums and the Leonis Martins and whatnot in specific lineups.
And there's no strikeout upside here. He's just kind of the guy you're hoping will go through 6 innings and pick up a win and kind of fall in that 15 to 20 DK point range. Like there's other guys with higher strikeouts just because Stroman's not a big strikeout guy. And this Detroit lineup doesn't have a ton of strikeouts in it anyway.
No, they really don't.
So you mentioned like Goodrum here, still like him quite a bit, over 200 ISO against righties. And then, just looking at some of these guys against sinkers, I mean, he is one of the better guys. A lot of hard contact. The Candelarios, Castellanos are guys that get the ball in the air. But there are a couple guys that just everything's in the ground.
Yeah, I mean that's generally what happens when guys throw sinkers. But Candelario 43% ground ball rates, Victor Martinez dating back to 2016 42% ground ball rate, but we're not getting the same Victor Martinez as we got in 2016. So like take that for what it's worth. But I think I'm basically leaning towards, like I said, like Nico Goodrum, Leonis Martin, and Heimer Candelario.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind it. Milwaukee and Cincinnati next here. Good ballpark. Got Chase Anderson versus Sal Romano. Both these totals climbed over 5 since last night. We do have to keep an eye. Like Travis Shaw, I know he's been banged up. He did get back yesterday, but Christian Yelich, but I like the lefties here. But I mean, you can play, still allowing contact. So.
Yeah, your connection, I think, got a little choppy in there, so I didn't completely catch everything you said, but like you completely froze up. That's awesome. I can't see anything. It's Eric Thames versus the Reds day. So like that's all you really need to know. You just lock in Eric Thames against the Reds because he just goes bananas against them. And he's got a 320 ISO against right-handed pitching. And Sal Romano is a guy that gives up, that really struggles with lefties, 370 WOBA, 193 ISO this season. And then, to righties, he does give up a lot of power too. So I absolutely love Eric Thames in the spot. I don't think Yelich is going to be in the lineup, but I do still like Travis Shaw. And then Jesus Aguilar continues to just absolutely rake. He's got a ton of power against righties this season, 319 ISO, 411 WOBA. It's a really good spot for Jesus Aguilar as well. And what I'm trying to find him on FanDuel. What's his price on FanDuel? Only 3,700. So That's a pretty good price for him. So I really do like the Brewers stack on this side of things. And then I don't hate some Cincinnati bats here against Chase Anderson either.
Am I still frozen into my back?
It's really choppy, but
Oh, hi. Back in. Talk about Reds. I'll hop back in.
All right, yeah. So the red side of things, Chase Anderson looked a little bit better in his last start. Let me pull up his last start here real quick. Struck out 9 batters, got a no decision against the Cardinals. Giving up a lot of home runs though this season, 16 home runs so far this season. You have a Cincinnati team that has been a little bit better recently. The biggest issue I have is Anderson's a guy that's given up a lot of power to righties, and there's not a lot of power righties in this lineup. I mean, you get Eugenio Suarez, and that's about it. But I mean, still giving up like a 302 ice or 302 WOBA to lefties. So I guess if you want to roll out the Sheblers and the Barnharts and the Vados and Scooters, you can. But like Eugenio Suarez, I think, is the guy that I have the most interest in from the Cincinnati side, just because Anderson's issues mostly come from the right side of the plate.
Heard Eugenio Suarez, and I agree. I don't even need to hear anything else he said before it because it's probably.
Yeah, I mean, my point was basically just he doesn't really struggle against lefties, so most of his issues are coming against righties.
Yeah, that's been the case with him. He's allowed more power here. I do like Suarez a lot. The guy's just been absolutely on fire this year. He's a bit expensive, but I like that because I don't think people are going to go there tonight. I think he's just got enormous upside.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, like, if you look, like 7 of his 16 homers have come against lefties. So if you wanted to roll someone like Scott Schebler, who has like a 49% hard contact rate against Anderson's fastball and a 389 ISO, you could probably get away with doing that. Like, he is only 3,500 on FanDuel.
Like, I still think like Jeanette and Votto and Schebler are interesting options here. A little bit secondary to Suarez, but I mean, we said, like you said, it's still a hard contact and fly balls to lefties.
Yeah, exactly.
Next one here, we got Houston and Tampa Bay. Wilmer Font take on Gerrit Cole. Gerrit Cole is still up over that 13K mark, or he's at 13K on DraftKings. It hasn't exactly just been paying off any of these high price tags lately, though. That's my issue.
I think we have to throw that out the window tonight. Like, period. Like all the pitchers are priced high. Like, all the good pitchers, all the safe guys are priced high. Like,
I know that. I mean, continuing from what DeGrom's been doing at his price of late, like he's shown upside, although the strikeout upside I don't feel is as high as Cole's is tonight because of the matchup. I like Corbin a lot for a little bit cheaper. It's just, I feel like we've been doing the Cole dance over the last like 5, 6, 7 starts, and it's just been kind of like, meh.
I mean, it's just 2 starts though, like, that he didn't really pay off. Like, it was just the last Tampa start and the Oakland start. I mean, Kansas City, he was fine. Texas, he was fine. Boston, he was fine. Cleveland, he was fine. San Francisco, he was fine. Like, outside of, I mean, I know, I guess the Boston or the Cleveland start was only 21 DraftKings points, but everyone else was like 25, 26, 29, 60. Like, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm willing to throw it out the window because he has one of the safest matchups on the board, and all the top tier arms are over 13K. So like, I'm willing to throw that out the window tonight. I put him in the pitch.
Are you on Cole over DeGrom here?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I think strikeout upside wise, I like Cole a little bit more. It is a good ballpark and is a good matchup, and there's just a lot less contact bats to worry about. I'm fine using him here. It's just like I don't love him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, on a slate like this where everyone is expensive, I'm just willing to throw out the whole price tag part.
Yeah. So no Tampa bats here at all, of course. No. I don't even like bats in this game in general.
I don't mind some Houston bats, but like, there's other offenses that I would rather target, I think.
Just too pricey. I just hate diving into this Rays bullpen games that actually have been working for them.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. And who is it? Was it Bregman or one of the guys just went on the paternity list? I don't remember who it was.
Oh, I'm not sure. Is it Gary L? Because he's not in the lineup or projected in the lineup, and I know Correa just hit the DL.
Yeah, it's Yuli. He just went on paternity list, so we might get a value guy in that lineup that you could consider.
AJ Reed's projected in there. He's first base. He's 3.3. He's got some power for a lefty.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got Reed and Tony Kemp projected in that lineup that I show, so those could be a couple cheaper guys that you can get some exposure to.
Yeah. I don't have a ton of interest in like the Springer, Bregman, Altuve's. Although if Reddick's hitting cleanup, I will have some interest there.
Yeah, you could do that.
So, moving on here in New York and Miami, Jacob deGrom versus Sandy Alcantara, making his debut here. Projected low-scoring game. I don't really have interest in bats. I think deGrom's in play here. He's $600 more expensive than Cole. He's in play. Like, he's a good cash game guy.
All the expensive arms are guys that you can realistically consider. Like deGrom, one of the outside of Cole, second safest matchup on the board probably. Obviously gets a park upgrade going to Miami where it's like death for hitters. I guess the biggest issue is obviously if you believe in the Jacob deGrom like home road splits thing that I don't believe in. There is that, and then also he has struggled against the Marlins this season inexplicably. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, but only 13 innings pitched, 4 earned runs allowed, only 14 strikeouts, but it's still Jacob deGrom. He's still coming off of like a ridiculously good couple of months. Like June was really good for him. May was really good for him. So I don't really know that we need to go too in depth about deGrom. I prefer Bauer and Cole personally, but like deGrom's deGrom.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I do like Bauer quite a bit. We'll get to him a little bit later. Like you said, it's 2 starts against Miami. It's 12 DK points and then 27. It's been one or the other against Miami. And that's just kind of how I feel like it's been for a couple of these NL East pitchers against him. We've seen Scherzer come up and have a mediocre game. It's just they're annoying. They're annoying offense.
They can be annoying at times, yes.
Other side of this one, I don't really have any interest in Mets bats here in this ballpark, and even at some of their prices, it's just kind of a wash matchup here for me.
Yeah, and I don't think Alcantara is like a bad pitcher at all. I mean, he's a young guy. Just this is going to be the first time we're seeing him this season. We did see him a little bit last season when he made like 8 relief appearances for the Cardinals. But I kind of like him as an arm. I don't know if I want to roll him out in this spot, but against the Mets offense that we love to target because they're terrible, I don't hate taking a shot on him in tournaments at his price tag of only $5,300. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. This guy's been throwing well down the minors, and his pitch count's been through the roof. I saw tweets. Everything's been up over like 90, 95.
Yeah, so he's well stretched out.
Yeah. Chicago and Texas here. Giovanni Gallardo taking on Dylan Covey. Giovanni Gallardo, I'm doing it. I like the White Sox bats against him.
I don't know how you can't not like.
I'm not going to not like the White Sox bats against him.
This is Giovanni Gallardo is so bad. This dude, I don't know what he's doing in the majors, but yeah, he's bad. Lefties, righties, everybody hits him really, really well, especially, yeah.
Especially everyone. The White Sox are in the stacking article. Gallardo is a guy who just doesn't have a lot of swing and miss stuff, and that bodes well for a lot of these bats. I think this lineup looks a little bit better with like Garcia in there and then like Palka and stuff. This projected lineup's pretty good. And I don't even hate like if Yolmer Sanchez gets in or like Tim Anderson, because Tim Anderson, ridiculous numbers against his fastball. But just, 183 ISO, the dude has shown some pop against righties this year and a decent amount of contact. But it's just because Gallardo doesn't miss bats, like it makes me like them even more, like the Davidsons and Palkas and Moncadas, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of strikeout upside.
Yeah, I completely agree. And these guys are cheap, like Garcia, 3,600 on DraftKings, Davidson's 3,800, Tim Anderson's 4,100. Like Anderson's been on a pretty good hot streak of late. So like he's someone even batting towards the bottom of that order generally. Like I definitely have some interest in, but like if you're playing on FanDuel, Avisail Garcia, 2,400. Just yeah.
Yeah, and he's been coming back. Like I know he's only got a couple less than 100 plate appearances this year, but I mean 38% hard contact against right-handers, and the guy dating back to last year still has solid numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Texas side of things here. Kobe's been decent. We finally saw a down game from him. I don't know, any interest here. Like these prices just aren't cheap enough for me to get excited about Texas.
He's gone back to being the bad Dylan Covey. So like I don't hate taking shots on these guys. Like his last 2 games have been terrible. And he's a guy that like inexplicably was good for a little while. I would lean towards the choose Mazara's. Jurickson Profar is a guy that's very, very interesting to me just because like over the last 2 weeks, 66% hard contact rate leads the majors in hard contact over the last 2 weeks. So that's going to pay off, especially in a park like this.
Yeah, it's super high. I know the wind's blowing in. I never care if the wind's blowing in Texas, though.
No, I care that it's like 900 degrees and like the balls are flying everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't like Robinson Chirinos. I like behind the dish. He's a guy that I don't mind in the spots. And the guy who, will get some lift on sinkers. That's kind of the guys that I'm looking at here. And you've mentioned a couple of them already.
Yeah, for sure.
So, moving on here, Atlanta, St. Louis. You're going to need to keep an eye out on the Atlanta lineup. It actually could be very bad tonight.
The Atlanta lineup's been pretty bad just in general recently. Mikolas is a guy that almost made it in my pitching article strictly because like they just have been struggling recently. But I chose to go with the cheaper option that we're going to get to a little later just because every other pitcher in my pitching article is expensive because every pitcher on the slate is expensive. But Mikolas, a guy, if you can afford him, very solid, I think, cash game option in the spot at 9,300 on DraftKings. I don't really see a reason to go there on FanDuel. But yeah, you mentioned this Atlanta lineup could be a little bad.
Yeah, I mean, he made it into the cheat sheets today, and there's, a little bit of a note if, Inciarte and Albies and say Acuna takes a day off or something, it's, we get a watered-down Atlanta lineup. I like him a lot. If we get those bats in there, I don't think you need to go there at the price.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's like you're not targeting him for strikeout upside in this spot anyways, and given that Atlanta's not a team that generally strikes out a ton against righties, I know this projected lineup I think is 25.9%. Who is that inflated by? That's Acuna in his 30%, and Swanson in his 24%, but he's just a safer option if those guys are out of the lineup.
For sure. I don't have any interest in really targeting them either way, even if guys are in the lineup, but just there's better spots to go.
I agree.
So St. Louis side of things here, I don't mind some bats. You look at Tehran, this guy who's given up over 200 ISO to both sides of the plate, ton of fly balls. Lefties do have the harder contact, but I still even don't mind the righties here. And I think I might just keep rolling with Carpenter. I know he's expensive, but dude's just been on fire.
Yeah, he's like 4K on FanDuel. That's pretty pricey. He's 4,900 on DraftKings, but the hottest hitter in base, actually, he is. Is he still the hottest hitter in baseball in the last 2 weeks? Yeah. So, like, yeah. Continue to roll him out. Tehran, I don't care about his good starts this season. Like, he is still really bad against lefties, and like I said, Matt Carpenter in an excellent spot against Tehran's forcing fastball. He's thrown 43% of the time. 468 WOBA, 417 ISO, 43% hard contact rate. Pretty solid numbers there. But even Dexter Fowler has good numbers against that pitch. Colton Wong, decent numbers against that pitch. Like I have some interest, especially in the lefties, but I don't mind mixing in a couple righties like the Jose Martinez and the Phams and the Yachties.
I think now that these price tags are back down, although I'm kind of curious about Pham's health, if he's actually healthy or not. But like Martinez and Ozuna, we saw heat up a little bit earlier this month. Like they're all at fair prices, and I don't think they're going to be extremely popular. I think Carpenter maybe a little bit, but like the Phams and Martinez, Ozunas, and Fowlers definitely won't be.
Yeah, they're not an offense that I think is going to garner a a lot of ownership tonight.
Moving on here, we got San Francisco, Arizona. We saw Corbin just absolutely dialed in against that Pittsburgh team, in his last start. That slider is everything that we always talk about. He just throws it a ton. His whiff rate 57% this year, and it is a Giants team that he's pitched really well against this year. And we've seen the strikeout upside, in these matchups, and there's no surprise just given that they're not a great team against sliders.
Yeah, I really do like him in the spot, especially in tournaments. It's Patrick Corbin, so you have to exercise a little bit of caution with him, because if that slider is not working for him, you get the starts like we saw against the Mets and the Pirates 2 starts ago. But if it is, you get the Pirates last start where he struck out 12 and went 7 innings and didn't walk a single hitter. He has been really solid at home. That humidor has really helped him. His in all his indicators are really good at home, like his 2.5 xFIP or something like that. So I really do like him in the spot, especially at a discount from the expensive guys. But he's just I think a tournament option for him.
Yeah, cash games it's a little tough to get behind, but I like him in GPPs. I do think you can take a shot with like McCutchen and Posey and like Gorkas Hernandez and GPPs against him, just in case. Like you said, I do feel like there are 2 sides of the coin here.
Yeah, I would be looking at those guys, and even someone like Brandon Belt, if you wanted to get a little bit contrarian, hits sliders pretty decently. But like you have Panic, Pablo, and Posey that have good contact rates against sliders. So if he's still throwing that slider and it's not really working for him, some of these guys could get to him here.
Yeah, for sure. And they're all fairly cheap and will go overlooked. Arizona side of things, you got Suarez pitching. Guy's kind of been up and down. There are some cheap bats I think you get some exposure here. Like anytime Ryan Murphy's in the lineup, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah, there are a couple guys I don't hate taking some shots on. He is a guy like this season, 366 WOBA allowed to righties, 183 ISO. Another guy that kind of relies just on really 2 pitches. That's his 4-seamer and his slider. That 4-seamer is only about 92 miles an hour, generates decent amount of ground balls with it, but you do have some guys in this lineup that do hit it really well. Like I really like Nick Ahmed as a cheaper option towards the top of that lineup, and you have Goldschmidt, Murphy. Like I know we talk about this being like Chase Field in the humidor and not being much of a hitter's park anymore, but I still really like some of these bats here.
Yeah, I do too. And like Ketel Marte's in play if you need a cheaper middle infield option. He's only 3.4. I do expect those numbers to come down against lefties, but I mean he's still been solid, and the extra base hits and speed are definitely there.
Yeah.
Getting into later games, we got Cleveland and Oakland. Trevor Bauer taking on Paul Blackburn. Bauer's been a strikeout machine this year. I really like him in this spot against Oakland, who do have some strikeouts, but are also just dreadful at home.
Yeah, he's a guy that I like. I put in the pitching article. I still think he's reserved for tournaments, strictly because he's still giving up a lot of hard contact, and this is an Oakland team that like they have a lot of bats that hit the ball really, really freaking hard. Like against righties, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters over 40%. You have Dustin Fowler and you have Chris Davis and Matt Olson up near, like 2 of those guys are over 50%. Bauer, like I said, giving up a decent amount of hard contact this season. So like that is a little concerning, but the strikeouts have been huge for him, and there is a ton of strikeout upside for him. He's also hurt a little bit by the fact that, like, for whatever reason, I think it's the large foul territory in Oakland Coliseum or whatever, O.co or whatever it is nowadays, does limit strikeouts a little bit.
You filled him. I think it's Ricky Henderson Field now.
These stadiums,
the 5 prior stadium names.
They get renamed like every freaking year, or some rich dude's like, I want to buy a ballpark and rename it to something guaranteed rate progressive insurance auto parts field.
So you're telling me Geico Field's going to be the next Oakland name here?
Probably.
Yeah, you do mention that. That is something that I think is underlooked here in DFS, is the fact that this ballpark does kind of depreciate strikeouts a little bit. Then you kind of look at Bauer, and he's got 4 pitches with like over a 35% whiff rate, and he's been just excellent this year. I'm with you. Like, I think he is GPP only, just because this Oakland team, it's not bad.
No, it's not, and they've been hitting the ball really well. And you have Jed Lowrie that's been doing Jed Lowrie things recently, but I still like I said, I think he's probably the top tournament pitcher on the slate for me. I think he has the most upside out of all of them. As far as like safety goes, I think you're better off with Cole and DeGrom, but he's still a really, really good option here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have any interest in really picking on him here, do you?
Jed Lowrie, that'd be about it.
Yeah. I think he's going to be on Hug Alert pretty soon.
He should be, like, as well as he's been hitting. Like, Oakland has no need for him, so I don't think they're going to keep him around much longer.
No, I don't either. Cleveland side of things, you got Blackburn, guy not a very good pitcher. Does roll some ground balls. It's also not the greatest ballpark. I will say I do like some of the cheaper options, like the Yonder Alonsos and Lonnie Chisenhalls here. I wouldn't call it a revenge game for Alonso because it was a peaceful Oakland visit.
I mean, he should be thankful for Oakland, because they're, well, I guess between Oakland and Eno Saris, Yonder Alonso's like power resurgence last season kind of led to him being in Cleveland. So like, it is a good spot for him against Blackburn. I mean, Blackburn 372 WOBA, 182 ISO allowed to lefties this season. If you want to take a shot on Alonso, Brantley, the lefties, feel free. I don't know. I'm not huge on Cleveland tonight for some reason.
I think it's just, it's the cheaper guys. It's like you said, it's not a great ballpark. It is a guy who does roll a lot of ground balls. It's just those price point plays for me are kind of like lineup fillers.
Yeah.
So, Pittsburgh, San Diego. Not a bad spot here for Joe Musgrove. I know he struggled a little bit, but gets a good rebound spot in a positive ballpark against a heavy strikeout team like the Padres. And I'm kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt over the last few starts.
Yeah, I dug into it a little bit. Like, for some reason over his last couple starts, he hasn't been throwing that cutter as much, which is really weird. He also talked about he did an interview after his last start and talked about how like he wasn't able to command his fastball, so he wasn't really able to do a whole lot. But like, I think this is a spot. I think he gets back to that throwing that cutter a little bit, and I think he gets back to being a solid guy. Like, I mean, he's not a guy that we're really looking for strikeouts. He's never really been a high strikeout arm, but against a team in San Diego that's striking out like 26% of the time against righties this season, I think he's a fine cash game and tournament SP2 option.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely agree. He's in all formats play. I'm not tremendously worried about the lefties here in this lineup, which, he's shown some struggles with. These lefties like Jankowski finally coming back down to earth, and like Spangenberg and Calvis, like, just haven't done much this year. And there are strikeouts. I think at that price, like, he's got a really good shot to just be an excellent value.
Yeah, I mean, there's only really two guys that I feel comfortable in cash games as far as in that value tier goes anyways. So like, I'm just kind of forcing myself into using him. So yeah, like I think he's one of your cash game SP2 options. Like, again, on a site like FanDuel, you don't need to pay down at pitcher unless you're just forcing a ton of really high priced bats in your lineup. So like, I guess you can use them there too, but I don't really see a reason to do that.
No, I'm with you there. Other side of this one, Eric Lauer, one of the poor arms on this slate. Any interest in Pittsburgh bats here?
I'll take a couple shots on some like Austin Meadows, Harrison, Freese, some of the guys that are generally cheaper. I mean, Lauer, you mentioned, not a very good pitcher. I mean, 382 WOBA allowed to righties this season, 187 ISO. Basically just relies on a cutter and a four-seamer. Meadows, a guy that's hit lefties really well this season, hits that four-seamer and 7 batted ball events really well with the 286 ISO, a 734 WOBA. But like Harrison, Freese, Elias Diaz, Osuna, any of these value guys that get in the lineup, I don't hate taking a shot on.
Yeah, I don't either. Like, you get the ballpark downgrade, but I think at their prices, I'm willing to overlook it. And just, Lauer, like you say, is just so bad. And all these guys, like I'm going to be looking for cheaper options, and I'm willing to overlook things like ballparks and stuff like that here at these prices.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like Osuna's very interesting on DraftKings at 3,200. Austin Meadows down at 3,900. David Freese, an interesting value third base option over there as well at 3,100. What do they have? FanDuel. David Freese 2,100 on FanDuel. There's your value third base plug right there.
Yeah, they're all super cheap. Kansas City, Seattle next year. We got Marco Gonzalez take on Ian Kennedy. Marco Gonzalez, I kind of maybe expected to struggle against, a start against the Yankees and the Red Sox. I think otherwise he's pitched very well this year.
Yeah, he really has. I was a little bit shocked. So when I pulled up the lineup or like the projected totals and odds, like he was at one point last night the highest favorite on the slate. He might still be minus 195. He was like a minus 210 favorite last night over like DeGrom and over Cole and like some of these other guys. It is a good spot for him. Like the Royals, not an offense that strikes out a ton anyway, so you're not targeting him for strikeouts, but he's in a good park. He's back home. Guy that just kind of pounds the strike zone and gets to work. Like the only time he really gets beat up is when guys are able to string together either like multiple home runs or just 3 or 4 runs over and over against him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you're not targeting here for strikeout upside, but this is just a Royals team that really, outside of like Perez and Whit Merrifield, there's not a ton of power against lefties. I like him here. You're kind of looking for a solid quality start and a win, and yet he is still the highest favorite, just barely over Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
So, no interest in Kansas City bats. I really do like Marco Gonzalez as like an SP2. I won't go there on FanDuel though.
Yeah, again, on FanDuel, you're really no reason to pay down below like the Patrick Corbin range, I don't think.
Yeah. Seattle side things here. You get Kennedy, a guy who's a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact to both sides of the plate. Guy who throws that 92-mile-per-hour fastball 56% of the time. I like some Seattle bats here in this spot.
He throws that fastball way too much.
Yes.
That's pretty much all it comes down to. I mean, that and his like he's throwing that what you said like over 56% of the time, 257 ISO, 40% hard contact against it. Some of these guys have pretty good numbers. I mean, Gene Segura 263 ISO against that pitch, Mitch Haniger 236, Nelson Cruz 356, Kyle Seager 275. Ryan Healy, 310, Mike Zunino, 279, Guillermo Heredia, 217 ISO. There's a value guy for you right there.
Well, we got Seattle covered now.
Just throw the names on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I like these guys. I know some of them are a little bit expensive, like Segura and Cruz, but I really like them here. Keep an eye on Seager, though, day to day. But I do like him at 4K. He's a cheaper third base option in a really good spot. And he's bound to come around at some point. I just feel like the hard contact and everything is still pointed in some positive regression here for Seager.
I mean, he regressed. He got the positive regression in that Baltimore series. Had a couple homers at Baltimore. His last 10 games have not been terrible.
No, it's just when people look and see the 288 Wobo, like I expect them to just be completely turned off.
Yeah, it's kind of crappy. Like the dude starts getting healthy and starts hitting the ball, and then like tweaks a ligament in his toe.
Yeah, it's not good. And the 216 BABIP. I'm sorry, Seager. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I like these guys 1 through 9 here, though.
Yes, so do I.
So. Moving on, Colorado, LA. One of the first things that we talked about was you were like, Rich Hill's going to be popular here tonight, and I agree. Although that Mets start did not make me comfortable at all.
The Mets start for any of the Dodgers pitchers didn't really go that well, except for Alex Wood.
Yeah, he was the only one to do anything. Rich Hill, it's not a bad spot. Although I don't love him here in this fight. You think he's going to be a GPP guy because he's 7-7, and Vegas all indicates everything that goes well for him. But I don't know if I'm pulling the trigger.
All I'm going to say is, when will people learn their freaking lesson with Dodgers pitchers? They're they're even Kershaw. Like they're all just, I don't know. People just keep throwing their money on all these Dodgers pitchers, and they're just super risky. And I'm just not going to do it. Especially not a guy that just like he like tears his fingernail throwing his curveball and comes out of the game after 40 pitches. And Dave Roberts does Dave Roberts things. Like, come on, like just stop, people. Just learn your damn lesson.
Yeah, it's a 14-game slate. Like we can go else. We talked, you were more on Hill against the Cubs in that first start back from the deal than I was, and I still look at this Colorado team, and they're not awful against curveballs, and his curveball isn't getting a lot of swing and misses this year.
Yeah, like I was on him in that start because he was cheap and there weren't as many options.
Like 5 games.
I get it. He could come out and strike out like 10 batters, throw 6 innings, get a win, and put up like 4 million fantasy points. And the people that take the risk on him, it's going to pay off. But like, I'm just not doing it, and I'm not advising anybody to do it. If you still want to do it, go for it. But you can also just go outside and pee on an electric fence. It'd be just as painful.
It's very true. Very true. Do you have prior experiences with that? Do you know that it's just as painful?
No, I do not. That is one of the things I cannot say that I had done.
I kind of like taking some shots against Hill if he's going to be super popular, and I agree with you. I think he will. I just like some of these guys. I know the contacts as you get deeper into the lineup start to drop significantly, but like LeMahieu's been hitting the ball since coming back well. We obviously like him against lefties, but like even Blackmon, I mean, against that curveball, 463 WOBA, 316 ISO, 45% hard contact. His contact rate's up near 78, 79%. And then obviously like Arenado, Story, Desmond, just guys that have over 300 ISO against lefties, like I think they're an interesting tournament way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this: Rich Hill against righties this season, 396 WOBA, 290 ISO, 49% fly ball rate, 50% hard contact rate, and you have guys like Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story. They hit the ball really hard.
Yeah, I think they're an interesting way to go. Like I kind of like them as a tournament stack here.
Yes, so do I, and especially like if you're paying attention to Twitter and other tout sources and all that other stuff, like and you start to hear a lot of talk about Rich Hill, I would definitely be spending some money on some Colorado bats and tournaments.
Yeah. Other side of things here, I'm going to limit you now. There is no Max Muncy for your home run call later. You cannot do it. Because I know you were going to.
I actually wasn't, just because it's not a righty, even though like Max Muncy has been pretty good against lefties this season, but he's not even in the projected lineup that I have. So I
feel like it would be insane to keep him out. And Anderson's been awful against lefties this year.
Yeah, it would be crazy, but we're also talking about Dave Roberts. So
yeah, who knows? I like some Dodgers bats here against him. We get Kemp in here. We get Turner, Kike Hernandez, who's just been on fire. I think there's some interesting bats, and I think they're all at reasonable prices. Like you're looking at all these guys. I mean, front four, basically below 4K. Kemp is 4K, but everyone else is really cheap.
Yeah, I really like Justin Turner in the spot, a guy that we love against lefties generally. I mean, 425 WOBA this season against him. That's pretty good. And he has BVP against Anderson, if I recall correctly. I don't have BVP like memorized, but I'm pretty sure he does. Let me pull it up. Justin Turner, 529 batting average, 17 at bats, 1 homer, 4 RBIs over the last 5 seasons. It's pretty good. But yeah, I really like Hernandez, especially on FanDuel at 2,900. Pretty solid price for him there. I do like a Dodgers stack in this spot.
I do too. They come in, they got some good value. Anderson, yeah, whether it's in cores or outside of cores, I don't mind it. And I like that Vegas is a little bit low. It helps keep some ownership down on the Dodgers.
Yes, it does.
So, home run calls. Who do you
got? Eric Thames. Daniel Palka.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna go that same game. I'm gonna say Moncada gets on the board with the homer, and then I like some Valbuena.
I dig it.
So 2 calls there. Check out DailyFantasyCafe.com, our tools and content. We'll be back next week. We'll keep tabs on the holiday, see how that goes. Me and Brent are going to break down whether we just want to light fireworks and drink all day or not.
Yes, I do just want to light fireworks and drink all day.
So we'll see how things go. But we'll be back next week. Good luck tonight.
Good luck.